Hello guys, I'm Tom, and today we'll explore who Shadow the Hedgehog is. One of the coolest, most tragic, and memorable anti-hero characters we've seen in the world of video games is Shadow the Hedgehog. He appears in the Sonic video game series, with his main debut in the game Sonic Adventure 2. Additionally, we saw him in the epic post-credits scene of the live-action movie Sonic 2, and we'll see him again in the third film of this trilogy, set to premiere this December, where he'll play a major role. Due to his dark and sinister origins, linked to the Shadow Project and the experiments of Professor Gerald Robotnik, who sought immortality and a superior life form capable of controlling the power of the Chaos Emeralds, Shadow the Hedgehog has a deeply dark backstory. So, in this video, I'll explain in detail the story and origins of Shadow the Hedgehog in the Sonic video games and movie universe. Then, I'll go over his physical appearance, what we know about his personality and behavior, and also his incredible abilities and known weaknesses. Shadow's story begins 50 years before the events of Sonic Adventure 2 and is directly related to the talented scientist Gerald Robotnik, the grandfather of Dr. Robotnik, known as Dr. Eggman, who is the main enemy of Sonic and his gang. Interestingly, Gerald Robotnik wasn't just a brilliant scientist. Unlike his grandson, he aimed to use his inventions and advancements for the good of humanity. This led him to create the first space colony called the Ark, a massive and advanced research center intended to enable the world's best scientists to conduct various special investigations and experiments with the primary goal of benefiting humanity. In essence, Gerald was the complete opposite of his grandson. Gerald Robotnik lived in the Ark along with his granddaughter, Maria Robotnik, whom he cherished deeply, as they had a very special bond. The girl was forced to live here because she suffered from a rare, incurable, and terminal illness called immunodeficiency syndrome, which severely limited her development. Gerald, however, was not satisfied and wanted to find a cure for his granddaughter's illness, as he believed that with his brilliance, he should be able to discover one. Around this time, the president of the United Federations proposed that Gerald Robotnik lead a top-secret research project called the Shadow Project, whose main purpose was to discover immortality for humans and other living beings. Dr. Gerald initially refused to lead the project, as he believed that the pursuit of immortality was akin to playing God, and that such a discovery could be used for evil, potentially becoming a biological weapon that could destroy everyone. Gerald particularly suspected that GUN, the United Federation's military, wanted to use it for this purpose, which he found morally questionable. Although Gerald didn't want to get involved in this project, he quickly realized that the project and all the financial resources it would provide could be used to find a cure for Maria, since the combined efforts of brilliant scientists could lead him to make a major medical discovery. For this reason, he ultimately accepted, although he knew the work wouldn't be easy, and even though his colleagues thought it would be impossible, Gerald Robotnik began researching this supposed formula for immortality. During his research, Gerald Robotnik discovered the existence of 7 extremely powerful gems capable of miracles, the Chaos Emeralds, which play a significant role in Sonic's story. Gerald knew that if he could replicate the power of the emeralds and control it at will, he could synthesize this pure energy to create a means of achieving immortality and give it to anyone in contact with the artifact. Thus, Gerald invented the Chaos Drives, devices that allowed living beings to consume the energy of the emeralds without harming or overwhelming them. Later, Robotnik attempted to create a vessel capable of withstanding this extreme level of power, leading to the creation of the BioLizard. It strongly suggested that Gerald, in his research, stumbled upon a mural in ancient Echidna tribe ruins, the origin of Knuckles and his people. This mural depicted a giant water serpent devouring an ancient city, adorned with gems similar to the Chaos Emeralds. This led Gerald to conclude that if he genetically engineered a creature inspired by this figure, it could withstand and synthesize such power. We know from the first Sonic Adventure game that this water serpent is perfect chaos, a highly powerful creature capable of controlling the power of the Chaos Emeralds. Gerald's research led him to create different beings and prototypes, like the Chaos Serpent, but in much smaller and less functional versions. Eventually, he managed to create a more perfect life form known as the BioLizard. This creature could grow very quickly, regenerate, and reproduce itself at will. Moreover, its organs could harness and synthesize the power of the Chaos Emeralds. However, this being could not move, lacked advanced intelligence, and had to be connected to various special machines to stay alive. It was also difficult to contain and control, as it was very violent and aggressive. At this point, despite his failures with the experiments and having created this monstrous beast, Gerald Robotnik remained persistent in his ultimate goal and mission. Nevertheless, some employees and scientists on the Ark leaked information to Gunn about the experiments, and many believed that the creature posed a severe threat. Some scientists even feared for their lives due to the risks of working with Gerald and the creatures he created, as the Shadow Project was very dangerous. Thus, Dr. Gerald finally decided to create his perfect being, something entirely different from that giant amorphous lizard. Many fans, myself included, theorized that Dr. Gerald conducted additional research, leading him to the special mural on Angel Island, which we see in Sonic 3, depicting a supercharged hedgehog fighting an evil humanoid entity. Gerald used this mural as inspiration to create his perfect life form, modeling it after that supercharged hedgehog, which led to the creation of the powerful Shadow. Shadow possessed all the advantages of the bio-lizard, such as immortality and the ability to control chaos and the emeralds, without the other creature's downsides, such as madness or genetic weaknesses. Moreover, Shadow was strong, agile, highly intelligent, and in every sense a fully functional creature. According to Gerald Robotnik, Shadow's personality and soul were based on the purity and soul of his granddaughter Maria, as he feared that the government or military might eventually capture Shadow and use him as a type of biological weapon. However, by giving Shadow this soul and personality, Gerald ensured that in the end, Shadow would always be able to make the best and most morally sound decision, striving for the good of others. It is important to note that, in addition to using the mural of the hedgehog as inspiration and everything he had learned previously with the bio-lizard, one of the most important components that makes up Shadow and makes him so powerful is the alien known as Black Doom, an ancient and extremely powerful being. Black Doom was essential in creating Shadow because despite all his ideas and what he had learned and created, Dr. Gerald Robotnik realized he could not, on his own, create a perfect life form capable of withstanding so much power. Thus, Gerald allied himself with Black Doom, an alien member of the Black Arms, who lived on the Black Comet. Gerald was determined to save his granddaughter at any cost, and by using Black Doom's DNA, he managed to create Shadow as a small hedgehog, who, nonetheless, was extremely powerful and able to withstand the Chaos Emeralds and their unimaginable power. Although Black Doom made a deal with Gerald Robotnik that he would return in 50 years to conquer the planet, the scientist accepted, knowing that upon completing the Shadow Project, he could save his granddaughter Maria. He assumed that afterward, Shadow would become so powerful that he could easily defeat Black Doom and his entire alien invasion. Once he was created, Shadow quickly formed a bond with the people who lived on the Ark, as well as with the Doctor's granddaughter, Maria, with whom he became very good friends as they spent much time together. Primarily since neither were scientists, they had a lot of free time on the Ark, and although they didn't realize it, they often discussed deep philosophical questions. Shadow had an existential doubt about his true purpose in life, wondering if he was merely the result of an experiment and a creation of the scientists. Maria comforted him, telling him that everything would be fine and that he shouldn't worry about such things, as he would always have her as his friend. All these conversations and the time they spent together meant a lot to Shadow, as both felt trapped on the Ark, and they wanted in any way they could to help the people on Earth, dreaming of visiting the planet one day when Maria's health improved and when Shadow had completed all the experiments Gerald Robotnik and the other scientists required of him. Because of this, they promised each other that one day they would fulfill this dream and enjoy Earth together. However, Gunn was already aware of the experiments and was concerned about the potential danger that Shadow represented. Additionally, they did not want any of this information to leak to the civilian public, as they didn't want the atrocities and monsters they had commissioned, such as the bio-lizard and other prototypes, to become known. All this uncertainty and the high cost of maintaining the Shadow Project became too much for the government and military, so they decided to end the Shadow Project and Dr. Gerald Robotnik's experiments. However, they knew that simply telling the doctors and scientists to stop working and consider the project finished wouldn't be enough. To ensure that everyone who worked on and knew about the project stayed silent forever, they decided to eliminate them all. While Dr. Gerald Robotnik was making the final adjustments to his perfect life form, Shadow, and was about to complete the project, the Ark was invaded by a full team of soldiers and military personnel, whose mission was to kill everyone on board, except Dr. Robotnik and Shadow, whom they would take to Earth and blame the whole incident as a fatal accident caused by an experiment that, according to them, Robotnik had carried out and that had gotten out of control. They would also destroy all evidence and files that proved the Shadow Project ever existed. The gun soldiers executed everyone present, and Robotnik, realizing what was happening, told Maria to take Shadow and escape together in an escape pod to Earth. As they were heading toward the escape pod area, they were intercepted by soldiers who shot Maria lethally, leaving her gravely wounded. Shadow incapacitated the soldiers and quickly helped his friend walk to the pod area. However, knowing that she would die, Maria activated the pod for Shadow alone and gave him her last words and wishes, telling him to escape, to live happily, and to do everything for her. Maria also told him to help other humans live and be happy, so that he could fulfill the purpose for which he had been brought to life and help make Earth and humanity a better place. After this, Shadow was ejected in the pod from the Ark and never saw his friend Maria alive again, remaining traumatized and deeply saddened by the death of his best friend. After the massacre on the Ark, Dr. Gerald Robotnik was arrested and captured and taken to Prison Island, where he eventually learned of Maria's death. This news drove him completely mad, and he began searching for a way to take revenge on the government, the military, and humanity in general, as they had taken his granddaughter away and destroyed his life's work. On the other hand, Shadow was quickly captured, as Gunn found his pod and was left in suspended animation for a long time in one of their special facilities. Gunn then ordered Dr. Gerald Robotnik to continue working on the Shadow Project, but now under much stricter supervision, which the doctor used to devise a plan that would destroy them all. This is how he altered Shadow's mind, programming him so that upon awakening, he would take the 7 Chaos Emeralds to the Ark, causing the space station to fall to Earth, destroying a large part of the planet. Gerald also modified the Ark and the Eclipse cannon at that location, and reprogrammed the Biolizard so that if something went wrong, it would cause the Ark to fall to Earth. Gunn eventually decided to conclude the Shadow Project and executed Dr. Gerald Robotnik, although he had already set everything in place for his plan to unfold and to destroy and take revenge on the military, even without his presence. During the events of the game Sonic Adventure 2, Shadow is awakened by Dr. Eggman, the grandson of Dr. Gerald Robotnik, and after obtaining the Chaos Emeralds, they are placed on the Ark, activating its destructive function and making the station about to crash into Earth. However, Shadow remembers his friend Maria and manages to break the previous programming as his personality and soul, deep down, were noble and similar to Maria's. Shadow recalls his promise and decides to give humanity another chance to survive, as Earth was the place he and Maria always wanted to visit. Therefore, Shadow chooses to use all his power to protect Earth, transforming into Super Shadow and using his chaos energy and abilities to prevent the Ark's fall, apparently sacrificing himself in the process. Although Shadow returns in the game's storyline, he later helps stop Black Doom's invasion, becoming a full-fledged anti-hero and a valuable ally to Sonic and his entire gang. Now that we've thoroughly covered the history and origins of Shadow the Hedgehog, I want to talk about his physical appearance, what we know about his personality and behavior, and explain his incredible abilities and known weaknesses. Shadow appears as an anthropomorphic hedgehog, similar to Sonic, but with black fur. He has a tuft of white fur on his chest and some red fur on the 6 spiked tufts of hair on his head. He also has 2 spikes on his back and a short pointed tail. He wears special white air shoes, similar to Sonic's, and white gloves with 2 limiter rings on his wrists. All of these features, as well as the more rugged features of his face, make Shadow a very imposing, cool, and slightly terrifying character. Shadow has a rather complex personality. Although Dr. Gerald created him to be similar to his granddaughter, Shadow has always been very thoughtful and analytical, deeply reflecting on his existence and purpose. Before the events of the Ark massacre, Shadow was like a young teenager who still had a lot to learn. Although later he remembers Maria and decides not to destroy the Earth. In general, Shadow has a unique personality that is the opposite of Sonic's. While the blue hedgehog constantly fights against evil because he knows it's the right thing to do and it is one of his core beliefs, Shadow, at first, does everything for revenge and to discover his true identity. Shadow is the polar opposite of Sonic. He has a harder demeanor, is stoic, solitary, and almost never shows his more sensitive or vulnerable side. He is also methodical and practical in his actions, although at times he can be consumed by rage, becoming ruthless and extremely violent. All of this makes Shadow a fascinating anti-hero. Shadow possesses some incredible abilities and powers, which make him an almost unbeatable enemy and a valuable ally to Sonic. He is said to be equal to Sonic in almost every ability, if not surpassing him in some. He has incredible speed and agility, reaching the speed of light. While Sonic's speed is a natural ability, in Shadow's case, it seems to be the result of his special shoes, though it's also hinted that his body could naturally run at great speeds. Shadow has superhuman strength and does not hold back when fighting, making him a brutal and ruthless fighter. He has superior reflexes, exceptional maneuverability, and mobility, allowing him to change direction with precision even while running very fast. As the perfect life form, his body is immortal. He cannot die from old age, disease, or injuries, and is immune to gunshots and most conventional attacks. Shadow also has an incredible willpower, which makes him unstoppable and persistent, one of his standout abilities. He is the only one who knows how to fully harness the power of the Chaos Emeralds, which allows him to control chaos control, manipulating space-time at will. This gives him a considerable advantage in any fight, as by using chaos control he can teleport and slow down time in his favor, gaining an edge over almost any enemy. Shadow is also highly skilled at handling all types of vehicles and is a smart strategist in combat. If he removes his limiter rings, he can become even more powerful and brutal, though he tires more quickly. Despite these abilities, Shadow has some significant weaknesses. The extreme actions he takes to accomplish his mission could be considered a weakness, as he is willing to risk everything or exhaust himself to achieve his goal, even if this isn't always the most prudent approach. Also, when he lost his memory, he was easily manipulated, and since he has DNA from the Black Doom aliens, he can be mentally controlled by this alien, although he can resist it to some extent. Despite his immortality, Shadow can be temporarily knocked out, and if he removes his limiter rings, he tires more quickly when using his full power, leaving him vulnerable. This is all we know about Shadow the Hedgehog from the entertaining Sonic video games and the upcoming Sonic 3 movie. Honestly, I think this character is one of the coolest anti-heroes we've seen in video games and one of the most complex. His origins are dark and tragic, but also fascinating, with all the research of Gerald Robotnik and the Shadow Project. I've always loved his design because he's a tougher version of Sonic at first glance, but knowing all his background adds a layer of complexity to the character, making him even more endearing and, in my opinion, awesome. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Did you know about Shadow the Hedgehog? Did you know his story and origins in the video game continuity? Do you think the movie will feature all this tragic and dark backstory? Or do you think they'll leave this part out? Finally, which character do you like more, Shadow or Sonic, and why? Comment below with your answers to these questions and your general thoughts about Shadow the Hedgehog from the Sonic video games and the upcoming Sonic 3 movie. As always, thank you so much for watching this video. I really appreciate it. If you liked it, please give it a like and share it to support the channel. And don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss any of my new videos.